After the Scrambled States of America was published, I was asked to do my first school visit. Up until that point, I had never read the story to a child, so I had no idea how they would respond. To my great surprise, they really liked it. To my greater surprise, they paid attention to all the asides, especially the love story between Nevada and Mississippi. They wanted to know what happened after they had to move back to their original spots within the country. Do they keep in touch? Are they still in love? And as one little girl wanted to know, what does Mississippi see in him? Since then, I've done many school visits, and every time I talk about the Scrambled States of America, someone asks me if I have plans to write another story about the states. When I wrote the original story, it never occurred to me to write a sequel. But after all the requests for another story about the states, I decided to give it a shot. Since I was working with 50 states, I started writing down scenarios that would call for a large number of participants. Several that made my short list were performing a play, going to summer camp, and having a talent show. But the obvious choice, after all the comments from kids, was to have a wedding between Nevada and Mississippi. I was imagining all sorts of funny moments, wedding bloopers, for instance, but I couldn't figure out what I was going to do with Nevada and Mississippi after they got married. Logically, one of them would have to relocate so they could live side by side like most couples. But one day a friend suggested that perhaps I shouldn't have them get married just yet, that I should drag it out and keep the anticipation building. He pointed out how one of my heroes, Charles Schultz, did that by never letting Charlie Brown kick the football that Lucy held out for him. I saw his point, so I put the wedding on hold, though they do have a reception hall reserved, as they tend to fill up years in advance. Instead, I went with my next favorite idea, a talent show. I started jotting down typical talent show acts, dancing, singing, playing an instrument, and so on, and some wackier talents that were specific to certain states without being stereotypical. And I decided early on that one of the states would suffer from stage fright. But all my early writing efforts fell flat because I was so focused on including educational elements that I was having a hard time lightening up enough to think of a silly story to frame it in. This was upsetting to me because the original Scrambled States came together very quickly. Finally, I came up with a working draft to send to Christy. I knew that it still wasn't right, but I couldn't figure out what to do to fix it. Some of her initial feedback was, "There's too much preamble to the story, and I grew restless in this section. Too much focus on a few states. You need to get other states involved. And the real stinger, your resolution to the stage fright seems a bit hokey and doesn't seem to resolve George's problem." Ouch! But she was exactly right, as usual, and her comments were just what I needed to get me on track. Hearing the word hokey helped me lighten up and write a goofy story that just happened to have some educational elements. The sequel writing process was a huge growing experience for me. Writing about the states again was so much fun that I have plans to write a third story about them, the summer camp idea. And, if and when the time is right, Nevada and Mississippi may just get married after all, if I can figure out their living arrangement, that is.